too, Mom. See you Sunday.
Mr. Agnew, your wife is on line 1.
Tell her I'm busy.
Mr. Agnew, apparently there's some video game market crash. Sounds like a Spielberg game did a dirty deed.
Sounds like a page 3 story. Get on it like white on rice.
Mr. Agnew, your mistress is on line 2.
Tell her me and my wife are busy.
Hey, Chief, have you heard about this Berlin Wall? The scoop is it may fall any day now.
Fly out to Germany and see if that's true, and get me a souvenir.
Ha-ha!
Mr. Agnew, your wife and your mistress are on line 1.
The sisters, they should be able to sort it out.
Hey, Gage, did you hear John Lennon died?
Now that's a front page story.
Schlag.
Gage Agnew LLC here, what's the scoop?
Gage, I don't have time for your Aaron Sorkin-ass jibber-jabber. I just got a notice you maxed out 3 credit cards in my name.
Take 5, everybody.
My credit score is in the toilet. I can't even get approved for a pre-owned car anymore. This better not be for one of your convoluted YouTube videos.
Oh, come on, Vin. How else am I supposed to illustrate the state of the press in the 1980s?
I swear to God, I am at my limit, Gage.
By Jove! Say that again!
I said I'm at my limit and... Wait a second. You better not be using this as some sort of segue too.
Everybody to the limit. Who's that? It's to the limit. Everybody come on forward, guys.
Here's a dirty little secret. We rented the office for the day. We're going to be using it to the fullest extent. Here's a dirty little secret. The idea in the creator's head and the one you see on screen are never 100% the same thing. Whatever restrictions, whether it be miscommunication between the crew, weather conditions, or just straight up cold hard cash, these limitations always crop up somehow. Take the original Star Wars, for example. Didn't I say I was going to bring that up? Well, this is important. There were a lot of restrictions on that initial film, which even the concept wasn't supposed to be the original idea. Originally, it was supposed to be an adaptation of the Flash Gordon comic strip that had some serial films in the 1930s and 40s, but it didn't get a proper film adaptation until 1980. Director George Lucas had to buy older film equipment himself and created the visual effects company Industrial Light and Magic after he discovered 20th Century Fox's visual effects department was disbanded. With Lucas's previous film, American Graffiti, being an independent film, George was very hands-on. This led to Lucas clashing with his veteran director of photography, Gilbert Taylor, with camera direction that ended up with Taylor making most of the creative cinematic choices. They even used a werewolf mask in the cantina scene that was widely available for sale at the time by legendary special effects artist Rick Baker. You can see George Lucas's original vision for the Star Wars universe more fleshed out in the prequel trilogy with its massive budget and use of CGI. People kind of prefer the old trilogy, though, instead of the sleekness of the prequel trilogy. These limitations are not limited to sci-fi cinema, though. Spielberg famously had a rough time on Jaws when that darn mechanical shark wouldn't work. While filming, the crew jokingly referred to the movie as flaws. Hey now, only I do the corny jokes around here. However, this limited use of the shark only made the threat scarier in the mind of the viewer. Money doesn't solve every problem on a movie set, though. Sure, you might be able to get a functioning mechanical shark, but what if you have to shove something up Tom Cruise's nose? J.J. Abrams had to deal with this problem on Mission Impossible 3, where another actor is injecting something into Tom Cruise's nostril. But of course, you don't want to hurt Tom Cruise. So Abrams ultimately had Cruise use his own hand to properly shove the gun thingy up his own nose. Horror movies had to be especially creative in their lower budgets. The iconic Michael Myers mask from the original Halloween from 1978 is just a William Shatner mask that's painted white. The original Evil Dead is full of innovative little tricks that distinguishes it from other horror movies at the time, such as its iconic POV shot of the Evil Dead. Originally, it was the camera mounted on a plank of wood with 2 people on either end carrying it through the forest in a sprint. In the final movie, though, it was mounted on a bike, though I recommend neither if you're using a rented camera. Of course, you can't talk about small horror budgets without bringing up the iconic Night of the Living Dead. Most of this movie takes place inside a farmhouse, and it was supposed to be a typical rural residency because that farmhouse was scheduled for demolition. It was cheaper to shoot the film there. A lot of props were also pretty low-budget solutions, such as human flesh being meat from the local butcher shops, and the blood being chocolate syrup, which has since become a staple in horror movies. Besides lack of funds, another huge limitation is scheduling. There are a lot of people required to make a movie or a TV show function, so if a crew or cast member isn't available at the exact right time, you might have to think of a clever solution. You see this all the time on TV where an actor is unavailable, so their character has to go away in some capacity. You know, they either go on vacation or slip on a banana peel and have to stay in the hospital for an extended period of time. Like Ed Helms in the final season of The Office when he was filming the third Hangover movie. I don't know why that's the only example I can think of. I just dislike that final season so much. In the second season of Breaking Bad, Bob Odenkirk's character Saul Goodman was supposed to show up and clean up a crime scene at Jesse's place. But since Odenkirk wasn't available, they cast Jonathan Banks as Mike Ehrmantraut as Saul's go-to fix-it guy. Banks had such a presence, he went from a recurring character to a main cast member in both Breaking Bad and its spin-off, Better Call Saul. Probably one of the more famous examples of a scheduling conflict was with Tom Selleck when he did a screen test for a movie, but ultimately was unable to commit to it because he had a role on Magnum P.I. I don't think that movie went anywhere though. I think it was called Raiders of the Lost Ark, and they had this guy, Harry Ford. I don't know. Maybe he's related to Henry Ford. Didn't look it up. I talk a lot about big budget movies, but most of these limitations come from independent films, with inexperienced filmmakers being forced to be innovative. Clerks is a great example of this. A lot of people thought the black and white color palette was an artsy-fartsy choice, but it was a necessary choice with the fluorescent lighting of a convenience store, as Kevin Smith explains in the third film.
And any filmmaker worth their salt would know that the colors in this place are fucking ghastly. The only way you can deal with them is to neutralize them by going in black and white, which will also kind of act as a commentary on the soulless nature of commerce.
In addition to production compromises, Smith had to cast locally as well as sell his giant comic collection in order to fund a movie, as well as maxing out around 10 credit cards. A huge risk that miraculously paid off. Not to rehash too much of my crowdfunding video, but money was such a huge restriction on these indie films. David Lynch took 5 years to make Eraserhead simply because he kept running out of money. It was worth it though, because he claims it's his most spiritual film.
Believe it or not, Eraserhead is my most spiritual film.
Elaborate on that.
No, I won't.
Animation is another medium that can be difficult to work in, whether the technology isn't there like the original Toy Story, which was the first fully computer-generated film. Originally, Disney wanted to make the first CGI movie based off of Pixar's Tin Toy, which came out in 1988. But it took till 1991 for the technology to be accessible enough to produce it. And the final movie came out in 1995. This clip from the second season of The Invincible show displays some of the shortcuts that the animators do in order to expedite the process.
You ever notice that sometimes whoever's speaking has their mouth off camera so you never see their lips moving?
Huh. I didn't notice
Games
that.
can also be restrictive when it comes to executing an artist's vision. The original Nintendo Entertainment System ran on a picture processing unit, or PPU, which could display up to 64 colors at a time. It's more complicated than that, but for the sake of brevity, that's what we're going with. That may sound like a lot, but if you look at Super Mario Bros. 3 compared to Super Mario Bros. World on the Super Nintendo, which can display up to 256 colors at a time, well, crazy, isn't it? Don't even get me started on Game Boys without any backlight to them. Before the Game Boy Advance SP came out in 2003, you had to ask your parents in the driver's seat to turn on the interior light to play your Game Boy. And as every kid in the 90s knows, if you get into a car accident, you'd be legally at fault because you distracted your perfectly well-driven parents. This is all visual components, by the way. The audio is a whole different story. The original Game Boy could only make up to 4 sounds at once. This is why in the original Pokemon game, the music just stops when a Pokemon does its battle cry. Here are some examples of those battle cries. Now. These are etched into my head more than I'd like to admit, and while I've come a long way since then, there's something so darn charming about those original sounds. You can see some of my favorite games reuse sprites and character models due to limited memory. In Punch-Out, you can see that every boxing opponent has at least one reskinned sprite. Except for King Hippo. That guy's a mystery, though. Why was he blue in the cartoon show?
What is wrong with you? Why are you blue?
This wasn't just on the NES, though. You can see it in a lot of fighting games in the 90s with mirror matches in Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat. Heck, the whole game of Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask reused a ton of assets from Ocarina of Time to get that game out in under 2 years. Ocarina had 4 years of development, by the way. People love Majora's Mask, though. The time limit in that game really stresses me out, though. I'm so bad at time management. I mean, you guys see my upload schedule, right? The original Alan Wake on Xbox 360 was going to be an open-world experience where you could travel both day and night. The game ended up to be a more linear experience due to technology constraints. Thank goodness that didn't happen, because not every game needs to be open world. Frickin' Indiana Jones and the Great Circle got me running around like a jackalay collecting relics so I can get to the secret 45-second ending cutscene. Get out of here! The point that I'm trying to drive home here is that if you have a really smart and resourceful head of a creative project, you can thrive within your perceived limitations. You don't have a certain prop available that day? Rummage through your kitchen to find a passable substitute. Not every mob boss needs to break your legs with a baseball bat. Maybe he can stab your kneecaps with a fork instead. Does every game need to be open world? No! Most games should focus a lot more on their gameplay and not have me run to the other side of the map for an item I don't need. Anyone who's worked on a creative project knows that things will go wrong at some point. But when it does, don't fret. With your creativity, the sky's the limit. Unless you're going to outer space, of course. Then the space is your limit. I wonder if there's an outer space above space. Maybe space 2. Tune in next time where I find the sequel to Space!
Still need us here?
Oh, you're still here. Yeah, you could have left an hour ago. Thank you for watching. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I appreciate you watching till the very end. But super special thanks to my patrons: QFGlenn, Loveage, Dangus, John Agnew, Super Swim Team 7, Megeara, John the Bopper, Parker, and Nurchin. Thanks again for watching. More to come soon. Man, spent too much money on this. Shouldn't have rented the whole building. Maybe I could max out another one of Vinny's credit cards.